So what we need to do is create a new file, TextPrint.cpp. And we need to define pragma once, which means when we include this TextPrint.cpp, if it's already been included, it won't be included again, and that will solve some problems with our compiler. Now we want to define VGA memory is equal to B8000. This actually is equal to an unsigned char pointer to this memory address. So we've defined this so that we can easily access our memory address and change the text like that. Now you've probably noticed that we have a cursor on our screen. Let's use that cursor to control where we are printing the text. And to do that, we're going to need a function to set the cursor's position. So we'll create a void SetCursorPosition, and then unsigned short position. Right. Now before we can do this, to actually set the cursor position, we need to send some commands across the I/O bus. And to do that, we're going to need to create some I/O functions. So, again, we need to create a new file. Let's call this io.cpp. Going into there, we'll do pragma once, like we did before. And let's make some functions. Now we want an out byte, which will put 1 byte out onto an address we specify. So the address is unsigned short port, and the value is unsigned char value. Now we need to do some inline assembly. So ASM volatile, we specify volatile so that the compiler doesn't make any optimizations that could break our function. Out B, which is our assembly for out, 0, 1. 2 colons, and then we have the value A, and then we pass in value as a parameter to this, which will essentially be calling value into here. And then ND port. I'm not going to go into specifics about how this works, because we're not going to be doing an overly large amount of inline assembly. Now we'll do the same with InB. So we're going to want to receive an unsigned char from a port. So unsigned short port. Unsigned char return value and return value. Now for our inline assembly, ASM volatile InB, basically the same as what we're doing up here. 1, 0, colon, equals A, return val, I'll just move this around a little bit, and ND port. Right. So basically we can send a byte in and out of our port through the I/O bus. So in our text print, we need to include io.cpp. To set the cursor position, we need to do a little bit of maths. We need to out B 0x3d4, which is the address we need to be talking to, and 0x0f. Now we need to out B 0x3d5 unsigned char position and bitwise and 0xff. Then we need to out B 0x3d4 0x0e, and then out B 0x3d5 unsigned char position 2 brackets position shift right by 8 bitwise and 0xff. Right, so that'll set the cursor on the VGA display to this position we've specified. So this position, this isn't a width height sort of position, this is just an index from 0 to the end of our video memory. So we can translate from a width and a height into this position quite easily, and I'll show you that shortly, but for now we'll just use this. And one last thing we need to do is unsigned short cursor position, and we'll set that when we update the VGA display. Right. Now we can test this out. So we need to include TextPrint.cpp and set cursor position, let's say 0. So that'll set it to the very first part of our video memory. Cursor position equals position is what I meant to write. So now we've set our cursor position to the 0th index on our video memory. Now let's set it to somewhere like the middle of the screen. So that'll be, we have 80 across and I think it's 25 down. We'll see. Grab out a calculator and we'll do 12 times 80 plus 40. So we have the 1000th index. So we'll set the cursor position to 1000 and it should be roughly in the center of our screen. There we go, right in the middle. Now let's create a function to be able to translate from the x and y, the width and the height, automatically. So we need to define VGA width. That's just 80. So we need a unsigned short position from coords, and then we want an unsigned char x, unsigned char y. And then we want to return y times VGA width plus x. Now we can do this. Position from coords, and let's do something like 12 and 18. There we go, so we've gone 12 across and 18 down. So now we can effectively set our cursor position to anywhere on the screen that we wish for it to be set. Now we haven't implemented any way for it not to go out of bounds, but that's not hard to implement and you're welcome to do it if you would like. Now before we go any further, I'd like to declare some typedefs so that we don't have to keep writing unsigned char, unsigned short, etc. So let's create a new file, typedefs.cpp. And the ones that I like to use are typedef unsigned char uint 8, typedef unsigned short uint 16, so unsigned int of size 16 bits, typedef unsigned int uint 32, and typedef unsigned long uint 64. So now we have unsigned integers, and we can clearly see how big each of these are. Now we can just include this file anywhere in our application and use these typedefs really easily. So let's go through and fix all this stuff here. So we need to include typedef.cpp, and we can change this to uint 16. Same with all of our unsigned shorts, and unsigned char can become uint 8. So it's just easier for me to read it like this. You don't have to do it this way. It's just my personal preference. You can call it something completely different if you want to. Right, so we've updated all of this, and in my personal opinion, that is much nicer.